Yes. Oh, it's something you want to talk about. Faux show. Major League Baseball rule changes are in full swing in spring training. Among the changes are bigger bases, banning the shift, and perhaps most notable, no, sorry, banning the shift, not the wave.
Not the
And perhaps, yes, perhaps most notable, the pitch clock. It seems to be working. Between Friday and Sunday, a total of 35 spring training games were played with an average game length of 2 hours and 37 minutes compared to an average of 3 hours and 1 minute for spring training last year. But it has also created some anticlimactic situations, like when Cal Conley of the Braves didn't set up in the batter's box in time with the bases loaded, full count, bottom of the ninth, the tie ball game, and he therefore is called out on strikes. Jon, give us your take on the
Talking
pitch
about the
clock.
epitome of brutality, huh? Holy
Yeah,
moly! Like
way worse.
that's
You don't
like,
even get to play the game.
well, it's just like that's the moment you dream of as a baseball player, right? You're bottom of the ninth, tie game, full count, bases juiced, and because you didn't step back into the batter's box with 8 seconds left on the pitch clock, you got called out on strikes. That was brutal, and I do think there need to be some protections against that. With that said, I am all about the pitch clock. I think that, and this is coming from a baseball purist. I got the '98 Yankees right there above me. As a baseball purist, I love a good long game. I do, but a 2.5 hour digestible baseball game really makes the viewing experience much more desirable, does it not? Just even losing that half hour can make such a big. And there were some games that were done in like 2 hours and 15 minutes this past week, like a little more than the average length of an NBA game, which is just awesome. Get these things done out of the way, especially spring training where there's no stakes whatsoever. They're going to have to get used to it in spring training. That's why you're rolling it out right now and trying to get people in the habit of stepping up. But what I have found is that, and from watching a lot of games this past weekend, most pitchers are adapting pretty well to it, and it's speeding up the pace at a desirable pace. It's speeding up the pace at a desirable length, I should say, rather. And yeah, I'm all about this, Mia. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about it because I understand what the American people's attention span currently resides at, which is little to none. I mean, just look at, the nature of when you scroll through Instagram or TikTok. I mean, within the first 4 seconds, if it hasn't captivated your
Yeah,
attention,
on to the next one.
scrolling past it.
Mhm.
It's something that as a content creator, I struggle with every day. And while it's a little bit different when it's a live sporting event, at the end of the day, your future depends on attracting the younger generation. And while there's hundreds, thousands, millions of young boys playing little league and young girls playing softball, I mean, the thing is I think and again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like there's this portion of the next generation that likes genuinely playing the sport, but
Mhm.
do they like following the sport? Will they sit down and watch a full baseball game versus they're just going to watch the highlights? Like that I've heard that from a lot of people that
Yeah,
that's
well,
how
and
kids watch the NBA.
I think a lot of people look at baseball as like a I can do other things while I watch it sport. And that is part of the appeal in watching baseball, but I also recognize where it's part of the I'm going to go change the channel element. And I think that by having the pitch clock there, you're making sure that players are not BSing. Someone posted a great video that showed an at bat from the 2016 NL playoffs with Jose Altuve hitting a inside the park home run in the corner. So it was this really slow at bat with Jose Altuve in the corner. And it was like, count how many inside the park home runs Jose Altuve hits before a pitch is thrown in this at bat. And he hit 7 before the pitch was even thrown. So there were legitimate problems that were also slowing down the broadcast too. And that's a really bad thing. I want to see more broadcast presentations improve with the pitch clock. I don't like it being a giant square in the bottom of the corner. It's very distracting. I think you need to incorporate that, like how the NFL has incorporated that into score bugs with a play clock. But I do like this a lot. I think it's something we'll get used to. I'm not really all that concerned. You just have to have some protection so that you don't have situations like what we saw in that spring training game where the game ended in the bottom of the ninth because you can have ties in spring training. But one thing I do want to ask you, Mia, on top of this is,
The extra runner on base in extra innings.
well, I mean, we know that that's a permanent rule going forward. And the runner on second base was put in to speed up the games. Why do we need that now if we're speeding up the games at an accelerated? I mean, we dropped in one weekend, we dropped 30 minutes on average off these games.
They
Do
want they
we
want
need
more.
the
Those are rookie numbers. Get those numbers up.
do we need that though? Like
No.
now?
No,
I mean,
the nature of baseball is to be pastoral and it's not supposed to be this fast, high paced, in your face hockey game. It's just not. That's not basketball. Like it's not subs on the fly. It's not
no.
just, next play, next at bat. Like that's I mean, yes it is, but not to the extent that those two sports are. It's just not. And the funny part is like we complain with football about, oh, there's too many TV timeouts, too many commercials. But the reality is that people keep watching it.
Well, and there's a finite time limit to a football game. You know when a football game is going to end. And look, baseball doesn't have that. But I just get bothered because this extra inning rule was done solely for the purpose of speeding up the game. And now we've already found a solution that is going to speed up the game massively. And again, I go back to it. I would have been fine if you did the extra inning runner in the 12th inning, 13th inning, but doing it right away when we're accelerating, I'm all about changes. I'm very liberal with that stuff, but it just seems to be so much so fast and so quickly. I'm fine with the bigger bases. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's whatever.
I've come around on the shift being banned
Yeah, I'm not a
because,
huge fan of it just because I think it's strategy and I think that
yeah,
that
but I've
loses
come
the
around on
novelty of
it.
scheme. And
If,
yeah.
if it creates more offense, that's good for the game, but
When will they ban the wave, John? What are your MLB network
they're
sources
never,
telling
they're
us?
never going to do it. And that's what pisses me off. But whatever. It's fine. This is something we should not be banning, and that's the Savannah Bananas because they are
Woo!
awesome. This story, if you guys haven't been paying attention to the Savannah Bananas, you very much need to introduce yourself and best
They're going to
familiarize.
be on ESPN Plus if they're not already.
They are baseball's version of the Harlem Globetrotters. They do dances, they do stunts, including this one that has captivated the internet in the last few days. This is outfielder David Meadows. And what he introduced recently were backflip catches. So he does a backflip as the ball is about to land. And you can see there with his glove out, he's catching the ball like that. This has to be one of the most visually impressive athletic feats I think I've ever seen. Where does it stand for you, Mia?
Because I don't think it can be choreographed. How do you know the ball is going to be hit
No,
exactly in that direction at that exact point?
you don't.
Exactly. That's where I think it has to rank up there.
Like,
Because as
I've
much as
always
as
been
much as no offense to your no offense to the pro wrestling crowd, which obviously, know your news. We love our MMA and our pro wrestling. But there's something to be said about blocking. Are the Savannah Bananas like stage choreographing? Yes, I think to some extent they are. I don't know if they're choreographing the entire game like the Harlem Globetrotters, because the trajectory of a baseball to go at exactly that length at that time and for him to do the flip at a certain time, I mean, that's some circus meets sports level. I don't even know what type of wizardry.
Yeah. I have a colleague that I know that is on the Savannah Bananas, and the amount of work that goes into their presentation is pretty incredible. And the choreographed dances, and just everything with the timing of stuff. I mean, they had one where they're doing a whole dance routine, and the guy just fires strike three, like right after it, and like you can't make that out. Like, what if a guy fouls off a ball? Like you can't control that stuff. So it is really down to a science for them. It's unbelievably impressive. This is incredible because, like you said, the Harlem Globetrotters, there is a pretty high degree of choreographing the game, but still, at the end of the day, they got to make the shots, right? Like you can't just get by off spinning a ball alone. In this, you're camping under a fly ball. If you screw up, the whole mystique of the stunt is gone. It's over. That's what people are paying to see you do. I've always been impressed by when hockey players drag the puck up in the air and place it back behind the net. Like if they're coming from behind the net, we've seen that goal a few times in hockey. It was that famous Michigan title win, I believe, that had that. Yeah, but I think this is right up there among the most impressive things I've ever seen in a sporting event. And I'm being so serious about that. I don't think I'm being overreactive in suggesting that.
No, and I think that there's also a larger conversation to be had as someone who worked in independent baseball for my first internship, my summer after freshman year, and who's covered minor league baseball my last two jobs, 3 jobs, I guess, technically. The Savannah Bananas were a minor league team, and they were on the brink of financial collapse. Then they were an independent team. And, where do you go from there? And having worked for an independent team and knowing that that independent team plays 12 miles away from the New York Mets and the New York Yankees in northern New Jersey, drawing fans is difficult,
Yeah.
even if it's affordable
They're
family
selling out
fun.
every night, 4 or 5,000 fans.
In a market, correct. In a market like
And they're on the
Jacksonville,
road, and they've taken it on the road.
no, they take them to cut because the demand is so high.
Mhm.
Here's the thing is like in a market like Jacksonville or even like a market like Cedar Rapids for what it's worth, where I previously was, like because there isn't a major league team for miles and because the affiliate of that team is relative proximity, with the Jumbo Shrimp in Jacksonville being the Miami Marlins AAA affiliate and with the Cedar Rapids Colonels being the single A of the Minnesota Twins, you get a little bit of like, oh, I'm a Twins fan. I want to see this young up and coming kid. But moreover, it's as a family, we love baseball and we don't want to drive all the way to Minneapolis and spend all this money. And therefore it's affordable. In Savannah, like in theory, you're 3.5 hours from Atlanta. You're 2.5 hours from, Jacksonville, who doesn't have a major league team. But like the fact that they said, listen, like we understand our lane and we're just going to lean into the bit. I think it is so revolutionary and I think it deserves all the praise and way more notoriety than it's getting for what they've done.
I agree.
Financially speaking and economically speaking.
I think they're well on their way to that. When you can take your brand on tour, you're on to something good there.
If you want to see all our videos about real news stories that are funny, stupid, or weird, click the subscribe button below. Otherwise, we'll start posting spoilers about your favorite new movies.